It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. We're back.
We're back.
I know we've done this a few times now this year. You know, we used to say no days off, no weeks off. Well, you build a little bit of tenure, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to take my vacation day, you know?
Yeah,
But
we're recording on Wednesdays now instead of
yes.
Mondays, which we did the last couple of years. And so we were going to do a Senior Bowl preview, but Senior Bowl preview while the Senior Bowl's happening, it would have came out on Thursday. Wouldn't have really made a whole lot
Right.
of sense, and we didn't
And
have
we
enough content to recap it. So what are you going to do?
Well, yeah, and so uh, when schedules are the way that they are, and we're a Wednesday show now, it's like can't squeeze that Monday in anymore.
Right.
It's like this is what we're working with. So unfortunately, yes, that is why we had to take a week off, and it was a sad week to miss because I think there is a lot of excitement looking ahead toward the Senior Bowl and thinking about who we think are going to pop in the week at practice and the game itself. But I think this year it's fine. It's
Yeah, if there
fine
was
that
any year to miss the Senior Bowl preview.
like it's just that kind of year. And I think a lot of the guys we're gonna recap it here. 12 players that won the week at the Senior Bowl, and that takes a variety of forms, as we've talked about in the past. Either you're a big time riser or you were on the radar and maybe you helped yourself. We're going to talk about all of those sorts of things today and go through 12 guys and hit some honorables at the end. But I think a lot of the players that stood out are the players that we would have talked about last week, because that was just kind of the nature of the field this year. It was a little bit of, we know it's a weaker draft class, so therefore it's going to be a weaker Senior Bowl class. And so I think that's kind of what we saw just generally last week, was that it was not a star-studded event this year.
Yeah, I was kind of taking a look at do the reverse Twitter search and Senior Bowl and just kind of scroll through just see if I missed anything, and I saw our tweet from last year and like the names that were listed. I was like, that's kind of nice,
Yeah.
kind of missed that, but
Yep.
yeah, just one of those years, 2026. We're kind of taking maybe a gap year in terms of offensive talent, but the defensive guys kind of showed up and showed out at the Senior Bowl. So if you're in those IDP leagues like we are and like we're talking about, you have a little bit of a bolstered draft class if you're sitting and looking at this as like an offense only dynasty league, which I think most people are in. You might be a little bit skeptical of the depth of the class, maybe.
Yeah, we intentionally are not cramming this list full of IDPs, which we very well
Yeah.
could have done, because at the end of the day, most people aren't playing IDP. We are certainly talking about a few of them here, but there's going to be guys that had awesome weeks that stood out in a big way that we aren't talking about on the defensive side, because there's just too many of them. And honestly, like you just said, they kind of stole the show. I mean, when you're watching the scrimmage periods, it wasn't the wide receivers, it wasn't the quarterbacks, it was the defensive ends going crazy and making life hard for the offenses in those periods. And
It did
it's
not look
so
like the Pro Bowl.
the best collection of talent, the most fierce competition in.
Oh God, I love
Did you watch the Pro Bowl?
I watched the first quarter of the Pro Bowl.
And what can you report?
It was entertaining, but it was bad football. Like objectively pretty. Like Shedeur Sanders started for the AFC, and then it was Joe Burrow. And when it was like Joe Burrow, that was kind of fun. And then Joe Flacco came in, and I was like, Joe Flacco's in the Pro Bowl? Like, wasn't he? I don't know if I'm like hallucinating, but wasn't he the Bengals quarterback? And then wasn't he? I don't even know what teams he played for. This like it all feels like a fever dream. I'm like, didn't he play for the Browns and the Bengals this year? And how are those the only
two
quarterbacks represented in this? I don't know. The AFC was
Bengals quarterbacks at the Pro Bowl.
yeah. I was confounded. But Jamar Chase had a pick six, one-handed catch. That was awesome. We tried to get Garrett Bowles a 2-point conversion, but they don't know all the rules because it's flag football, and so Chimere DK threw it to him, and he was over the line, so it was a legal forward pass. And I was like, I didn't think I'd be seeing Chimere DK throwing Garrett Bowles a 2-point conversion, but hey, man, it's a 2026 Pro Bowl for you.
There has to be a way to make this entertaining.
I keep saying, and I don't know if this works, but you have it so it's on the same, like it's the day before NFL honors where they all get the awards, and you're only eligible for NFL honors to receive your award if you play in the Pro Bowl. You get the bet, so then Myles Garrett's going to be there, Josh Allen's going to be there. Obviously, Drake May is not going to be there, but like Matt Stafford would be there, and otherwise you can't get your award. You'll get it mailed to you. Sorry.
I like that. What if we went more radical?
Okay, I like it.
And what if we just get rid of the competition aspect of it entirely?
Okay.
Just make it something entertainment based.
I think that's what they're trying to do with like flag football.
I know, but like
We're trying to
even
prepare them for the Olympics, right?
Everything about it just feels wrong.
Right.
Because like the wrong players are there. Nobody cares.
Yep.
I'm getting push notifications that's like, it's 56-48. Tune in to find out who's going to win. And it's like, this is the most captivating professional sports league by far in America.
Yep.
We have to find a way to make this all-star event actually captivating and mean something. I don't know.
So just pay them. So we got to put the pads back on. I think that's obvious. Like I think
Yes.
the flag football thing is terrible. And then they have like the trackers with like how hard somebody gets hit, in like the pads, and they're all this technology. The higher the hit number, we're paying them.
Yes.
So we introduced hitting people harder, and then we get some guys in there, and the competition is a little more intense. I don't know.
How do we make it NFL blitz but
Right.
in real life?
That's what I'm saying. I want to see
that's the secret.
X-rays in real time of somebody's leg breaking, and they're giving them adrenaline shots on the sideline and pushing them back in the game.
Yeah.
I want that.
Well, I don't know how to segue.
The Senior Bowl was competitive.
The Senior Bowl was competitive, and we have 12 players here that showed out in a big way this last week, and to varying degrees. Like I said, some of these guys we've been talking about for years at this point, like multiple years, and other guys I learned who they were last week.
Yeah.
So it's a nice
that's
mix.
the beauty of the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Get introduced to some new guys.
Yeah, I came away from the week feeling like I'm going to go watch some guys that I wasn't thinking about on film. And we'll talk about a little bit of that as we go through the list. But let's start. We're running 12-1, and this is loosely like, it's hard to quantify this, but kind of like, who helped themselves the most in ascending order, I think is the way to say that. Like 12 being the number one being the person that helped themselves the most.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for here. And number 12, we got a running back. There's going to be 2 of them today. This is a difficult event for running backs to stand out in. And I'm not going to say that the running backs that we're talking about today is like, they looked so good, like they're going to be, oh my God. But like, for as good as you can look and as much as you can help yourself from a running back's point of view at the Senior Bowl, I think the 2 guys we're talking about here did do that. And one of them Number 12 is Kaelon Black, the running back from Indiana. So first and foremost, the guy won a national title a week beforehand and showed up to Mobile anyway to compete at this event. We talked about, is Surratt going to show up? Is he going to be there? No, he's not going to be there. Kaelon Black, he will be there. He'll show up. And, you know, this is a Feldman's freak. We did talk about him on the Freaks List episode this last summer. I think you selected him in that. We were talking about him. A little bit of a smaller running back, but he's got speed and strength. He was noted in that article for some impressive weight room numbers. His teammate Mikhail Kamara called him Indiana's biggest freak for sure. And through the playoff this year, including those 3 games, he had a 1,000-yard rushing season, finished the year 186 carries, 1,034 yards, 10 touchdowns. So, you know, not a massive year when you factor in the 3 extra games, but he was a contributing factor in this national championship winning Indiana season. And I thought this week he kind of put all of those traits on display. He looked explosive. I think the scrimmage periods, you could see his acceleration, his explosiveness, see a little bit of that strength, a little bit of that power as much as you can in this environment. And then the pass catching drills. I thought he also looked very, very good there, looked explosive, was, you know, I know those linebackers are usually set up to fail, but like he was looking good there. So I thought it was an overall a good week for, you know, a running back that's maybe a little bit underrated, underappreciated, and in a class like this might end up climbing the board a bit.
Yeah, led his team in rushing. He had 45 yards rushing, which is, I know, you know, but everybody's splitting time here. So I think it's on 8 or 9 carries. He had 45 yards, had a nice explosive run, and it was like, hey, this is kind of nice to see. Maybe putting his name on the map a little bit. He split carries over the season with Indiana. So it was just kind of cool to see him get a spotlight put on him a little bit. Scrappy player, I'd say, a later round guy, but somebody with that, you know, receiving upside a little bit. He's got good size. So we're like, you know, looking for these running backs to fill out our draft board as we get closer and closer to finalizing a 48 as the draft quickly approaches and the combine's right around the corner. And it's like, hey, this guy's explosive. He's fast. He can catch passes. And, you know, had a pretty productive season at Indiana, won a national title, stood out in the Senior Bowl. You know, these are all boxes that you're hoping these later round guys are going to check. And he's doing all that. And so, like, have a good day at the combine. And watch out, you know, he could be going a little earlier than you think.
It's like first of all, he gets his viral clip. So that's the number one thing when you're going to the Senior Bowl. You want to be one of these guys that gets a clip that's passed around a little bit. He had one of those against the blanket on his name, but the Arkansas linebacker where he just absolutely cooks them on like the little out route out of the backfield. But what's notable about that is that he was not asked to catch passes at Indiana. He only had 5 receptions this year for 42 yards. But if we rewind 2 years ago, this was a James Madison guy. So this is one of the players that came with Cignetti to Indiana. And his final year at James Madison, he did have 25 catches for 214 yards. So, I mean, very solid numbers for a running back in college. And so I think what we saw this week was a little bit of like, hey, like just because he wasn't catching passes for the last 2 seasons at Indiana doesn't necessarily mean that that's not a skill set that he possesses. We've seen it before, and now we're seeing it a little bit on the practice field in Mobile as well. So
and then we'll be keeping an eye on them at those. I mean, they run them through the ringer of pass catching drills at the combine too. So get a healthy dose of it in these off-season looks as we continue through draft season.
We're cooking now.
Love it.
And how about this next player, which is not necessarily a deep sleeper. It's certainly not a deep cut. We've talked about this player a lot. It's Justin Joly, one of your favorite tight ends in the class. I can't remember exactly where you slotted him.
third, I think.
Yeah, so I feel like that sounds right. I had him sixth, but a player that I like a lot as well. It's just a really good tight end group. And I think when you looked at the rosters, Joly's name is going to stand out here because this is a player that, this tight end group at the Senior Bowl this year was not very strong. You're expecting a player like this to come in and look like the best guy there. And I think in many ways, he put all of that kind of on display throughout the week.
Yeah, he had another one of those like viral clips where he hit the little corner route, contested catch, go up over the top, get the feet down, won the tight end of the week honors after the practices. So didn't do a ton in the game, but like I said before, it's like it's hard to find like who cares about the stat lines in the Senior Bowl game. It's kind of where it's at. But in the practices was very good in those receiving drills, and had apparently pretty good interviews where he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to fit in any offense in the NFL. I'm going to do the same thing as I did in college in the league. And so it's fun to see these guys hyping themselves up. And then he's also another one of these like freaky athletes where you could see some pretty sweet combine numbers on top of, stacking together some good performances in these Senior Bowl practices. And so I'm excited about this player, and he's, one of the guys that's higher on the board that ended up being good at the Senior Bowl. And so it's kind of, it's not all going to be, like you said, these deep cut guys, but Joly was a good performer.
Yeah, this was more of a solidification, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I was very curious to find out was what was he going to come in at?
Right.
And really, I mean, he came in kind of exactly where he was listed. 6'3" flat.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely on the shorter end of the spectrum, but he did weigh in at 251.
Right.
So we have legit 250, that size. We've talked about this a lot. The mass that he has added over the course of his college career, it's very real. He's coming in over 250 pounds, little stockier of a build, but we've seen how his game has kind of progressed over the course of 3 seasons, going from a little bit of a lighter yak player to a little bit more of a complete tight end, and one that has excellent ability at the catch point in those messy, rough contested catch situations that you're going to be in as a tight end. And we saw it this week. You mentioned it, that highlight grab that he had in the end zone, it like going over the top of a guy. Like, he's not getting separation there, but he's going over the top and he's grabbing it and he's coming down with it. And so I think what I saw this week from Joly was the man coverage stuff that we talked about, like when he was forced into those physical, like the one-on-ones where the corner was being a little bit more physical with him, that was something where he was having a little bit of a harder time getting off of it, but he's overcoming a little bit of that with his ability at the catch point. And then you're seeing him still run some really nice routes. Like, he had a slant route that was very clean as well. So, I mean, he's certainly not a perfect, pass catching. He's not going into the league as like a perfect pass catching tight end, but man, he's got a lot of skill there. And I think, yeah, this was definitely a good week for him overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let's talk about a quarterback. I feel like we do one of these every year because at the end of the day, what is really going on for a quarterback in the week of practice?
Right.
But this one is kind of important because it's Garrett Nussmeier. And we talked about Nussmeier on the quarterback rankings 2.0 show where he was playing hurt all year. And it became very clear by the end of the season that, I mean, he was not healthy almost the entirety of this 2025 season. So the up and down year, the regression statistically, the regression on tape, a lot of that was sort of how much of this has to do with the injury. And I think he came to Mobile looking to prove that he was A, healthy, and that B, he was still one of the top quarterbacks overall in this draft class. And so I think really at the end of the day, he did that. I think he came in, he looked like the best quarterback at the event this year by far.
Mm-hmm.
He won the MVP of the game, which you can say whatever, because I'm going to say whatever, but like it's a thing that happened. So, but yeah,
Do you think QB2 still up for grabs in this class, or do you think it's like Ty Simpson, whatever?
I mean, personally, I don't think it is for me.
Right,
I think
but
it's pretty
for the
sealed up
NFL,
for me. I mean, for the NFL, maybe.
yeah,
I mean, Nussmeier was a player that coming into the year, there was a lot of hype around his name. He was talked about as a top 5 caliber player. I don't think either of us were there with him, but I also think that had he had a healthy season in which he could show some growth or at least some stability from what he was in 2024, then there's a pretty good chance we're talking about him as a first round quarterback, like clearly. And so if NFL teams are vetting him and like this event has any sort of impact on, yeah, you know what? I don't know. 2025 might just be a throwaway year. Like I don't think this is the player we're drafting because I think that player was hurt. If that has any bearing with, actual NFL teams and they like the player and the interviews and all that, I think there's a pretty good chance Nussmeier is still going to be able to be a first round caliber quarterback. I don't think that door is completely closed.
no, I agree with that. Because I saw, I don't remember which draft analyst it was, but it was somebody that I recognized, and they're like, yeah, he's right back up in the top 3 QB2 conversation. I'm like, I don't know if I'm there, but it's nice to see him come out and like perform well and look healthy and do things that are Nussmeier-esque. The measurements that came in, I didn't love 6'1", 202.
He was an inch shorter than he was listed.
Yeah, and like 6'2" is already kind of short, and so like 6'1", I don't love that out of a quarterback that's limited with his mobility, because if you're going to be small, you got to be able to move and find windows and get out of the pocket. And Nussmeier can, but it's definitely not his strong suit. So that's my biggest red flag out of the weekend out of the week for him. But I still thought that he played really well, and it was just nice to see healthy Nussmeier go out there and sling it around a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good call out because he came in a full inch shorter than he was listed, 6'1", around 200 pounds. Yeah. So that'll be interesting because there
was a concern. I shouldn't say we, but there was a concern surrounding his weight because he was listed under 200 when he was at LSU. And so it was like, are we going to have a, 6'2", 190? Like that was, I don't remember what the Bryce Young weigh-in conversation was, but I remember that was like, is he going to be 200 pounds? And it was like, you drink like a gallon of water and he'll be 200 pounds. Does that satisfy you? So I don't know if 202 is like, GMs are like, oh, well, we can cross that off the list. But I don't know. We'll see what he's at the combine, see if he can hold it.
Yes. All right. Well, let's talk about one of these defensive players. It's about time we get into this. And this is a big one because TJ Parker, this was edge 1 for both of us coming into the year. And we talked about him not last week, but last episode about like, this was a bad year, but also Clemson is like next to an electric substation or something. And so it's like, what are we supposed to do with this? And so what I wanted to see was that he would come here and just dominate. And that's what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what he did. He was a dominant player in both the one-on-ones and the scrimmage periods. A move that I loved from him in 24 was the long arm move, and that was on full display, especially in the one-on-ones. I think he had 2 separate reps that were just violent wins with the long arm. So, I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance that this alone is enough for possibly teams, but certainly me, to be like, yeah, I kind of want to write off 25 because I loved what I saw in 24, and I thought he was proving it this week.
Well, yeah, you take a player that you say, man, this should be good, like independent of the situation, and then you take him independent of the situation, and he dominates, and it's like, okay, so maybe there is something going on with Clemson, and like that's why there's this stink on every single Clemson player where you kind of look and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of grossed out by all these names as you kind of go down the list, and but then Parker like dominates in the one-on-ones. He looks great in the practice, and you're like, okay, the drills look really solid. He's like the overall winner by consensus throughout the week, and you have a little bit of a better feeling going in, and you kind of wash that off where you're like, hey, maybe the Clemson thing is not, the be all end all, where this team was dysfunctional, this team was underwhelming, whatever adjectives you want to use, the negative adjectives you want to use to describe this team. It all ends up being like, yeah, but TJ Parker's kind of sick, so like he's going to go 15 and be a good asset for whatever team. So we talked about the substation last week, which they don't have a substation by their practice field, but they do have a graveyard.
Ooh.
It's the Clemson football graveyard. So I wonder if it's just players, but yeah, I don't know. Something spooky about that. Maybe getting haunted.
Yeah, we'll have to remember that in October. We'll have to get a Clemson player on our spooky badge episode.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, you say like, oh yeah, he's we're back to TJ Parker going 15, and that's kind of what for a while it was. Is TJ Parker even going to go in the first round? I think when you were looking at mock drafts over the last month or whatever, it was some of them are going to have him at 28 and some of them aren't going to have him at all. And I think that was always a little bit absurd to me. I think this week is going to do a lot to get that name back into that conversation in the, top 20 range of the draft. Cause I get it. There's a lot of great edge players. He's certainly not where he was coming into the year in terms of the overall class, but that's still a good player. And I think he's still going to go pretty high in the NFL draft.
The Clemson football. Oh, so it's not players that have died. Okay. It marks AP coaches poll top 25 wins on the road. So they put a headstone up when they beat somebody that's top 25 in an away game. That's
kind of sick.
I love that.
I kind of don't like Clemson, and I don't know why, but that's pretty sick.
That's kind of awesome.
All right. Another player that we have talked about before. There's going to be a theme that starts kind of right now. We already started it with Kaelon Black, which is that I think almost every single remaining name is a Feldman's Freak alumni. And Josh Cameron is one of those. We talked about him last summer as a Feldman's Freak. He was noted for his return ability last year at Baylor, as well as being this versatile running back or wide receiver in a running back's body type of player. Wearing 34. Nothing about him makes sense, really. But he's had 2 good years back-to-back at Baylor. And we gave him a badge. I think at least 1 badge, maybe 2 badges this year. Like, it was a good year. And I thought he came to Mobile and backed it up. I thought he looked really, really good this week. And I'm going to say something that's going to maybe be a little controversial. His physicality, his body type and his physicality in the one-on-ones kind of reminded me a little bit of Malachi Corley.
I don't know. Is that a good thing?
It's
what made me fall in love with him.
It's not a good thing.
No.
but like maybe it is this time.
Yeah, it wasn't the good thing last time, but god damn it. Malachi Corley was like 5'10",
Yeah,
195 pounds, and Cameron's like 3 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier. So that doesn't hurt. Yeah, he
he's
was
got
making
that
some
going for him.
pretty like sick plays. He had like a diving catch down the right side in one of the one-on-ones. He had one where he didn't get very much separation, but still like boxed the guy out, stretched out, hands catch, contested catch. I mean, making some real wide receiver plays for a guy that could be seen as like a gadget guy, a return guy, a special teams guy. You know, if you can have a player like this be an impact player on an offense while also being like a potential, Pro Bowl return type player where he's like, a guy that you can trust doing both punt and kick returns, you can feel pretty good about that. So I like Josh Cameron a lot. I am eagerly anticipating seeing what number he's going to choose to see if I can, throw my support behind him or not. But yeah, I thought that it was fun to watch him play.
Yeah, he's a really fun player. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And you love to see the physicality. You love to see the catch point stuff that he was showing. I mean, he had the leaping catch across the field in the scrimmage, and then that diving catch that you referenced in the one-on-one, and that was like the one that they pick him out like, Cameron, you're going against this guy to end the day, kind of thing. Like he gets chosen as that player and then makes a spectacular play on that last play of the day. So that was really cool to see. I think the route running, the separation ability, even in this environment, when it is tailored towards wide receivers and a guy is still having some issues separating, you kind of know that they're probably like not the best separators, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
But I think Cameron is just a player that, if you're willing to and comfortable with betting on these guys that are not pure route runners coming into the league, but they have a lot of athleticism, they have a lot of yak ability, they're great at the catch point. If you think that you can turn that player into a wide receiver that can consistently separate against NFL corners, you're going to like Cameron a lot. And I think we've seen this type of player. I'm trying to be positive here, but we've seen this type of player kind of not really work over the last few years.
If you're an I can fix him type of person,
Yeah,
Josh Cameron might be your guy.
like we're shouting him out here because I'm still excited about what he can be, and he had a great week, and I want to celebrate that. But god damn it, when I'm talking about you in the same vein as Malachi Corley and Jonathan Mingo,
Not great.
I'm just not really sure how to feel about it.
Oh
But
gosh, those are the guys. I keep saying this, but find a role on special teams so you can stay on a team,
yeah,
and then figure out how to play wide receiver as you go.
well, one wide receiver that has a little bit of an easier time separating is Ted Hurst, the wide receiver from Georgia State. Again, a Feldman's freak. And this one is a little bit near and dear to my heart because when the freaks list came out, it was about a month. Actually, it was probably about 2 weeks after College Football 26 came out. And I'm like, I want to rebuild a 1-star, smallest of the small program, but I want a freak. I want to pick a team that has a Feldman's freak so that I can have a ridiculous season with them. And I took Georgia Southern, and Ted Hurst did, in fact, dominate college football under my leadership of the program. But in real life, he's not a bad player either. And he had a really good season, a career best season this year at Georgia Southern, 71 catches, 999 yards, just missed the 1,000-yard mark, 6 touchdowns. This is a player that spent 2 years at Valdosta State
Sure.
before before
That's real.
moving to totally real school. Uh, Transferred to Georgia State in 2024 and immediately came in with a 961-yard season, 9 touchdowns. So the jumping competition, no problem. We're dominating in the Sun Belt. We did it again this year. And Hurst is one of these size speed guys. That's what lands him on the freaks list. He came in this week or last week. He measured in at 6'3", just a hair over 6'3", 207. So legitimate size and legitimate speed.
Which is bigger than he was listed at.
Yes.
Because he was 195 listed, which I'd rather 207.
207 was a little bit of a surprise
Yeah.
because, like you're saying, that was over 10 pounds more than what he was listed at. So I'm curious how, like, if that was his playing weight this year or if he was bulking up a little bit for this event. But I mean, some of the reps that he puts on at this size, no matter if it was, 6'3", 200 or more than that, like he's winning down the field consistently. He's able to stack guys, to win on these post routes, easily like catch the ball in the middle of the field, pull away and score touchdowns. Like he's got legitimate speed at this size. And I think you got to see a little bit of that this week, like especially in the one-on-ones where he's able to just stack a guy, and he had the one highlight catch, the one-handed catch. That's something that you also see on film with him. He's been a really strong contested catch player. The pure drop numbers have been a little bit high for him over the last couple of seasons, but he's been really, really good in the contested areas, making those plays down the field. Also a player that flashes a little bit of skill, as a ball carrier in the open field. 18 missed tackles forced for Hurst this last season. So he's a really interesting player. And I know that he's got a lot of fans in this process. I think there was a lot of people that were excited to see him at this event. This is kind of that quintessential, like, you're at Georgia Southern. What are you going to look like against these guys? And I thought overall, pretty strong week.
Yeah. Yeah. 61% career contested catch percentage is pretty good. I mean, talk about the 50-50 ball turning into better than that when you throw it up to this guy, and he's turned it into a 60-40 ball, and that's really good. Didn't have a single contested catch, contested target in his freshman year, or maybe it's a sophomore year. I don't know if the stats, but didn't have many targets in total. But when you got a guy like this, how are we not throwing up to him? Like, what are we doing? Let's give this guy a chance. And they figured that out pretty quick at Georgia State, and they figured it out at Senior Bowl too, that you can just give this guy a chance. And like you said, it's size, speed. It's a pretty classic story. Also a pretty like violent route runner, I would say. Like at the point of attack, he really like sits down in his route and like explodes out of, and sometimes it can be a little telegraphed and whatever.
Yeah.
But I just like, he's a fun watch, and it's the type of player that you could see maybe be a little more confident in because he's got a little bit more of a well-rounded skill set. We'll end up seeing, like we did at the Senior Bowl, what the like raw numbers look like, and if the speed translates to real NFL speed and that kind of stuff. But you saw at the Senior Bowl, best on best, he's still burning these guys, and that's the real important stuff at the Senior Bowl. It's like, how do you look? Can you out athlete the guy across from you? Because all the other stuff is like kind of what are we really looking at here? But when you look at a Georgia State guy and you look at some of these smaller school guys, can they do it against the best competition available? And he was.
He was noted in the Freaks List article as running a laser timed 4.51. I wonder if that time goes down at the combine, because like he seems faster than that.
Right.
And so,
but
we'll
like also you had to wait.
Right. I mean, it's not like 4-5 flat would be a bad time at all.
No.
And like, I feel like there's this connotation if it's not in the 4.4s or lower that it's like terrible.
Yeah,
and
if you're
you're
6'3", 207, you can
right.
get a little leeway maybe.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, you see him consistently winning down the field. I think that time can certainly improve and look a little bit better even for him in a couple months. But or no, this month.
This month.
That's crazy.
There we go. Wow. It's like 23 days.
What is happening?
Time flies when you're having fun.
Who's next? Ooh, okay. Here we go. Running backs. We're back. Mike Washington Jr.
Feels like an NFL name.
It is.
I'll say that.
I almost feel like we probably didn't talk about him this year because it's like the most just like, oh yeah, Mike Washington.
Right.
Like that's
he's a third down back in the NFL.
Yeah, like he'll be in the league. We don't need to think about that. But Mike Washington, the measurements come in and it's like, wait a minute. You're telling me that there's a running back in this class that is 6 feet tall, 228 pounds. And he had 1,000-yard rushing season at Arkansas. And we didn't talk about him at all. And I didn't even really know who this was going into the week. And he's freaking fast. Like he's explosive as hell at this size, which is pretty awesome to watch. And especially at the Senior Bowl, where some of the things about Mike Washington that are not as fun as his size and speed combination are not on display.
Right.
Like you just get to see the big guy move insanely fast. And he even came in as the fastest running back, like the GPS miles per hour time or miles per hour recordings. He was clocked at 21 miles per hour, which was the fastest at that point in time when that was flashed on the screen at the very least. But I mean, so the 230-pound guy is beating all of these smaller backs that are there. And he's looking good in the pass catching drills, which was not a surprise because he was involved as a pass catcher at Arkansas this last season as well. 28 catches, 226 yards. Honestly, looked pretty natural in the pass game. If I had a chance to watch him a little bit here because I was like, do we have a secret like RB3 on our hands here that we weren't even aware of? And that's not what ended up happening when I watched him. But like he's definitely a very fun player. I can understand why there are going to be people in this class that are like coming out of the Senior Bowl being very excited and pounding the table like, this is my RB3 in this class, man, because you can't teach this size speed combo.
Yeah, he was going to draw probably some crazy comparison to where somebody's like, hey, this guy is Chris Johnson. And it's like, well, all right, let's
Hey, you ever heard of Derrick Henry?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
we might have another one.
So you'll probably hear something where you're like, can you get Derrick Henry in the 5th round of the NFL draft? Here's your guy. And but he is a fun player, and like you said, the Senior Bowl is kind of the exact environment that he would succeed in, and that you could have expected him to succeed in. And I didn't really know about this player. I didn't know much about him, and didn't pay a ton of attention to Arkansas this season because they weren't very good. But he had a good season, and he's an interesting player that has that, athletic profile where somebody's going to take a chance on him, and you never know, like a guy gets hurt and all of a sudden he's out there running wild in an NFL game, and you never know with running backs. So he says that he's a 3-down back. He said that in an interview. He said, yep, put me in, coach. So we'll see if somebody listens.
Well, he's going to have to get better at pass protection. I can tell you that. He's very rough in that area. And I would love Mike Washington to lower the shoulder with violence more often. I'll just say that.
I like that.
He's moving fast. He has moments. There's a play against Texas where he buries a guy and finishes for a touchdown on that play. And I'm like standing up and beating my chest, ready to just shoot him up my draft board. And then he's just getting tackled and he's lowering the shoulder. And it's like, I just want to see more violence at the point of contact from him. He lowers the shoulder, but he doesn't make a guy pay for coming at him. He just kind of lowers it and hopes that they bounce off most of the time. So I'm just coloring it in.
NFL draft files on Twitter. You know the account, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Mike Washington Jr. is officially my RB2.
There it is.
There we go. After the Senior Bowl. So it was a literal 1-to-1. I was trying to figure out if his dad was, if he had like football in his blood. I can't confirm officially or not, because I found a Mike Washington that played at Alabama, but the ages don't quite make sense. So I don't think so. Unless he had him at like 53, which is possible.
Well,
not going to say it's not.
Yeah.
And he was a defensive back for Alabama. Who knows?
Huh. All right. I think I did. I'm switching the order a little bit.
Oh.
We're going to go Kyle Lewis here.
Okay.
Because Kyle Lewis is an interesting player in the grand scheme of a dynasty conversation. This is a linebacker, first of all, from Pitt, an undersized linebacker, measured in at 5'11", 224. So when we think about dynasty, and we're talking about this linebacker class being unbelievable, amazing, it definitely helped itself at the Senior Bowl. We're not done talking about linebackers. Kyle Lewis is an interesting one because you're not quite sure what to think about his role at the NFL level. And it seems pretty feasible that the role could be specialized enough that he won't really factor in from an IDP angle. But my God, was he one of the most impressive players last week? I mean, it felt like every time he was on the field, that's where your eyes were going, because he was just doing something amazing. And all of the one-on-ones where we're always saying these linebackers are getting set up to fail, it's like, don't even pay attention to it. He was winning those.
Yeah.
He had multiple interceptions.
The coverage reps were so sick.
Like, he is crazy in coverage. And so I think, again, Feldman's freak, by the way. But no matter what's going to happen with Lewis in the NFL, like, he obviously helped himself from an NFL perspective. And it's just a name that's worth knowing at this point, just to understand or to pay attention to, where is he going to get drafted? What is that role going to look like for him? And is it going to be enough that he warrants an IDP sort of, conversation about him? Because he's got ball production to go with his ability, 6 interceptions in the last 2 seasons. Like, there's a chance where if he's playing like weak side backer or just like whatever, like playing nickel but he's on the field enough because we're playing nickel all the time or whatever, like there's a chance that he's relevant. So, and maybe he's one of these guys that gets linebacker DB eligibility. And so like, that's what we're talking about here.
Wouldn't hate that. Yeah. You look at a guy like this, and I talk a lot, especially about linebackers and how linebackers, like, don't expect them to be good at coverage. Don't expect them to, fly around, and everybody wants to have a Fred Warner on their team. And Fred Warner's 101. And if you compare your guy to Fred Warner, that's why everybody thinks their linebackers suck. You look through, and we talked about this a lot, especially on the IDP episode, is like, hey, when you look at anybody, you search up a guy on Twitter, you're like, man, how is like Roquan Smith doing these days? It's like Roquan Smith, old, washed, can't cover, he's terrible, misreading situations. It's like, oh gosh, I thought Roquan Smith was awesome. He looks great when I'm the eye test, but something must be going on. You go down the list to any of these guys, and they're just like, yeah, these guys can't cover. Well, linebackers aren't built to cover. Linebackers are built to fill holes and make running backs go backward. But then you look at a guy like Kyle Lewis, and he's built kind of to cover and not to go bury people, but he's not so bad at filling holes and making guys go backwards either. So maybe there is a gem here, and maybe we're looking at a player that is a riser and is a watch list guy, maybe a very late round draft pick in a dynasty draft, but definitely like, hey, keep an eye on this, keep an eye on the roster situation, where he's moving, who's got the green dot, all that kind of stuff, because he very well could be a player if he's with like a young linebacker core. He could very well make his way up that depth chart pretty soon, just with the types of plays that he's making in the coverage game that can make up for, whatever deficiencies he might have in run defense. So I was very impressed by his just fluidity, his coverage, his stickiness, the understanding, like guys are running angle routes on him and he's sitting down and jumping it. And it's like, hey man, that's not cool. Like, what are we doing? I didn't think, like, you're just supposed to lose that rep and GG next, and then a play that I loved actually in the Senior Bowl practice that he had, that's like such a linebacker move, is forces the guy catches it and then he just like hits him hard, makes him drop the ball. Instead of like going and getting the ball, it just starts like slapping his helmet, yelling at the sideline, and like his teammates are all like scrambling to like recover this just in case it's a fumble, and he's like screaming and slapping his head, and I'm like, hell yeah, like, because he's like, yeah, it was incomplete, but I love that.
Man, Kyle Lewis.
Remember
Lewis. That name. Maybe remember this name too. This is one that we've talked about before. This is Malachi Fields. This is another Freaks List alumni, but not 2025, 2024. We talked about him 2 summers ago when he was still at Virginia. He was freaky enough and had a good enough start to that 2024 season that I took to Twitter in my the limited tweets that I have shared since that point, and I professed my affection for Malachi Fields as a 6'4" wide receiver, 6'4", 2, what did he come in at this week? 218. 6'4", 218, Feldman's freak, nimble feet, quickness, yak skill. I'm like, this is everything I've ever wanted a wide receiver to be. And he transferred to Notre Dame this year, and it was kind of, I was very interested to see what that was going to look like. And he did not have a great statistical season. He regressed in terms of yards and touch. I mean, he had the same amount of touchdowns, but 630 yards, 36 catches only this year. But he definitely made plays this year. Like, there were definitely games where he showed up, and there were definitely clips of him, like that crazy catch that he made like towards the end of the year over the middle of the field, like jumping over a guy and crashing to the ground, like the quintessential big guy contested catch play. And it's like, oh hell yeah. And when you looked at the Senior Bowl rosters and Elijah Surratt's not going, it's like this kind of feels like maybe the best wide receiver that's going to be there this year. And in a lot of ways, he kind of felt like the best wide receiver that was there. So that was a very good thing for him. Like he needed to come into this week and just kind of put to rest any sort of weird concerns about anything that happened at Notre Dame this year, the statistical regression and all of that. And I thought he had a really good week. I mean, he was doing all of the things that he's really good at, which is stacking at this size, winning vertically, making contested catches, making those crazy plays, high point ability stuff. Like that's what he's really good at. And he was putting it on display last week.
Yeah, looked like a real NFL wide receiver. And that's the type of thing that we're saying is lacking, and like this 2026 class is so. Maybe, the offensive players are a little bit disappointing. Malachi Fields came out here and he's like, hey, I'm going to run this post route. I'm going to make two guys think I'm going corner, and then I'm going to go post, and then I'm going to get a bad ball thrown to me, adjust to it over the wrong shoulder, and then dive and make this catch. And it's like, holy shit, like this is one of the guys. And then also just in like the smaller reps, a nice 5-yard in route where he's putting a nice little head fake on a guy even though he's stumbling out of his break because he got pressed, and then catching his balance and then still getting 3 yards of separation. Nice slant route where we're just making the guy miss straight off the line. So all over the field, winning in all these one-on-ones, and then also, has the ability to take the top off, has the ability to make these contested catches. So felt like, almost like a grown-up in the room where it's like, man, this is nice. We're not seeing the inconsistency. We're not seeing, some of the reliance on the physicality too much. We got some technique. We got the size. We got the speed. We got a little bit of everything here.
Yeah, I did not love his film from this last year as much as I was hoping for.
Right.
But he showed a lot more technique over the course of last week than I was seeing from him on film. Like he had a curl route that was really, really nice.
Yep.
And that was a route that I thought that was not very strong for him. Like, which is also a challenge when you are this big physical vertical threat and then you can't really run that curl route. And so it's kind of, a corner can kind of play off of that and just play you deep. And it was nice to see him throw a little bit more of that ability in. And so, it's you can't always let it just override what you saw on film, but at the same time, it's certainly a player that I will bump a little bit from last week. Like it's a player that did enough this last week for me to say, okay, like you certainly helped yourself in the grand scheme of things.
Hey, if the Senior Bowl didn't matter, they wouldn't hold it.
Right.
So it means something. So yep. I agree with you. We're looking at guys that are doing the things they're supposed to do and performing in ways they're supposed to perform. They deserve to get a little bit of a bump at least.
Okay. So this next player originally was going to be lower on this list. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like,
who helped themselves more? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how could you not say that this was one of the winners, like maybe the winner of the whole thing? And it's Tyren Montgomery. Because talk about a player that nobody knew before last week. I mean, unless you're a John Carroll student or
that's going to the games, which is not a ton of them.
So Tyren Montgomery, if you didn't watch last week or you haven't heard any of the fallout of this, which I think a lot of people listening to this probably have, but Tyren Montgomery, Division III wide receiver, coming from John Carroll, like D3.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
That's crazy.
And what's even crazier, it's not just that he's D3. He started playing football 2 years ago. He did not play football in high school. Like, imagine graduating from high school and, okay, he's an athlete. He walked on to LSU basketball. COVID happens and something gets all janky, and I don't really understand the timeline from what I was able to read. All I know is that he walks on at LSU, but then decides that he wants to play football. Like, I don't know if LSU was like, we're not playing you, like, whatever. And he's like, I want to play football. And he goes to some flag football league in Florida and is so good that Nickel State, a Division III program, is like, we'll let you play football for us. And he goes to Nickel State and he doesn't really play. And so then he transfers to John Carroll last year and has 1,000-yard season. And then follows that up with this past year, 1,500-yard season, over 100 catches. He's got 176 receptions, 2,599 receiving yards, and 32 touchdowns in 2 seasons at John Carroll. Like, as a brand new football player, basically. And is so impressive in the, it wasn't even I don't think it was even the Shrine. It was like some other all-star event. He's so impressive there. And we had a decent chunk of wide receivers drop out of the Senior Bowl that they were like, let's just invite this guy. And then Tyren Montgomery comes to the Senior Bowl and he's one of the best wide receivers on the field all week. How is that possible?
It's unbelievable. He started playing football because his little brother played football. He said basketball wasn't in the cards anymore because of COVID, so he had to figure out something to do with his life. His brother, Cam Montgomery, who's the quarterback at Eastern Kentucky University, or is one of the quarterbacks at Eastern Kentucky, he's a freshman, was playing football, and basically it sounds like he convinced him to try. And that's the story. The story is written then, and here's another page in the book that hopefully will become a novel for this player, because I mean, what an absolute like force at the Senior Bowl that's making these plays. And I mean, unbelievable athlete. When you talk about these guys that come from a basketball background, usually have like the jumps, the speed, the burst, and he has all that, and he was putting it on display at the Senior Bowl where he's making these guys, I mean, making cornerback look real hard to play, I'll tell you that. And it's just kind of sick to see a story like this culminate in one of these, off-season kind of quote-unquote all-star games where he's making obviously D1 guys, but these guys that are, from big schools that are real corners that are going to have NFL aspirations, and he has no business being, looking at the NFL draft and thinking, hey, maybe I'll get my name called. And this is making that a lot more realistic, where he can absolutely have made himself some money because of last week.
Like, he had a rep in the one-on-ones against Colton Hood.
Yep.
Who, the cornerback from Tennessee, who has a chance to be cornerback 1 in this class. Like, almost certainly a first-round NFL player. Dad played in the NFL. Like, and this guy's coming in off the street, basically. Like, yeah, I guess I'll come hang out at the Senior Bowl. And he just wins a curl route against Colton Hood.
And kind of destroys him. Makes him bail. It makes him bail on the route, and then just puts the brakes on and comes back. It's like, whoa, all right.
I feel like there were multiple times where it was a wide receiver makes a play, and I'm like, who was that?
Yeah.
And every time it was like, oh wait, that was Montgomery.
Yep.
Like the catch, he had one of the catches in the back of the end zone, and this is a small player, like 5'11", 190, and he was making tough catches. He was showing off that vertical and going above the rim and making catches there. He had a slant route in the scrimmages that like the corner fell over. Like, I don't know what this player is going to end up becoming. I don't know where he's going to be drafted. I can't imagine, you have to imagine that this is going to be a day 3 player almost certainly at the
Yeah.
NFL
Yeah,
draft.
definitely.
But
Pretty cool if he
man,
wasn't.
it's the kind of player that you just want to kind of bet on because he's just proven you wrong at every step of the way. Like, he should not have been able to come here and look like arguably the best wide receiver at the event, and that's kind of what he did.
Yeah. Jumping on, like, the thing about guys with basketball backgrounds, they jump off of 1 foot so easy and just like get so much air. And he had one of those catches. He was matched up against Thaddeus Dixon out of North Carolina, who not like the cream of the crop of wide receivers, but like, or of corners, but not a bad player. Had 5 interceptions this past season. Like, had a pick in the Senior Bowl practices. Again, definitely not a bad player, and ran by him pretty easily. And then went up off of 1 foot and plucked like high pointed it as high as you can go, and like probably 9 feet in the air, 10 feet in the air, and just like pluck it out of the sky, and then come down with it. And it's like, what the hell? what is happening? Who is this guy? So just an impressive, really fun story that you don't really get every year, you don't get every day, like whatever, but just a really exciting player.
Yeah, you get the fun small school story like yearly at the Senior Bowl, but you don't get this kind of a story.
Right.
This is something completely different. And so I think you're going to have a lot of eyes on Montgomery at the draft. And I think you're going to have a lot of people that if their team takes this guy and they learn what went into that and who this guy is, I think he's going to be one of those ultimate fan favorites for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right. 2 more players to go, and they're both IDPs. So if you're not playing IDP and you don't care about these guys, I'm sorry. But defense.
No, don't turn it off. Don't turn it off.
Yeah, don't turn it off. Just, hey, you know what? They're good players. It'll be fun. But defense stole the show, and it's really hard to call the biggest winners of the event and not call them or not say that they're defensive players. And we're going to start with an edge player. And like I said at the beginning, there's going to be a lot of guys that could have made this list that didn't get referenced just because we didn't want to fill it with IDPs. But Zion Young in particular, I thought was maybe the most impressive defensive end at the event. I mean, there were a lot of really good ones, but Zion Young from Missouri has the size. Talking about a player here, 6'5", I believe, 6'5", 262. He kind of profiles more as one of these like power rusher, but more of like an edge setting, run defender, high motor type of guys. That's a little bit developmental as a pass rusher, but man, oh man, was he looking great in the one-on-ones in particular. I mean, he had 8 sacks last year at Missouri, 2 forced fumbles. They clearly like easily his best season as a pass rusher. It seems like he's starting to put the pieces together there. And he was blowing guys up in the one-on-ones. And it was not just, I'm going to bull rush every single time. It was, he has the bull rush that went crazy, like getting shared around where he just buries that guy. Sure, he's got that. But then you also had the one where he hits a nasty swim move on a guy, gets inside and easily wins. And then you had the push-pull where he just rips a guy down and tears him to the ground and he's in the backfield. Like, he was showing off a kind of full arsenal of pass rush moves. And I know it's, we're just in the one-on-ones and all that, but like for a player that is profiling as a little bit more developmental in terms of his pass rush skill set. It was really kind of nuts to see what he was putting on display.
The stance that he's in, also this
Oh yeah.
4-point stance,
Yeah.
is diabolical. Like,
Yeah.
as a tackle, I'd be intimidated. Like, his head is inches off the ground when he's in his stance. It almost feels like the like anti-Genty, where like Genty was standing straight up in the backfield and it was scary. Zion Young is like prowling on the ground and like it shoots up out of this stance. And yeah, had the bull rush was pretty sick. The push pull was sick. That inside swim move, which I don't love as a move for my defensive end to be doing, because like you can get beat outside, and like if this quarterback knows how to roll out at all and you don't secure that sack, it can get you in trouble. But when you beat a guy that fast and that clean, it's real hard to get out of there. So it looked awesome for the Senior Bowl practice, and he looked good across the board in all those one-on-ones. And that's where you get the like flashy plays as a defensive end, is you get to show off and say, yeah, I'm better than you. Like I'm going to line up across from you and I'm getting into that backfield. So yeah, definitely a ton of really fun reps for this player. Strong player that has some quickness and the tenacity, and yeah, just a ton of fun to watch over this week or over last week.
Another name on this fun collection of edge players that we have. And I think this is one of those years where there's going to be a lot of value to be had post draft in IDP drafts. Like, you're going to have guys that you can just watch list or try to find get an extra roster space, put a guy on IR and grab one of these guys. Like, this is the kind of year where there's going to be very talented players that are available on the wire.
Yep.
You know who's not going to be available on the wire?
Who's that?
Jacob Rodriguez.
Good player.
I fucking love him.
Yeah. I'm all in.
Like, he might be my favorite, pound for pound, maybe my favorite player in the class. I love everything about him. I love his game. I love his attitude. I love his aesthetic, where his neck meshes with his head and you can't tell where one starts and the other ends. And he's everything you want a linebacker to be. And this was the situation for Rodriguez where he's got a lot of fans, you and I being among those fans. We talked about him. He's your IDP 1. He's my IDP 2. This was kind of the situation where it was like, what's he going to look like here? Because if he looks like the best player, the best linebacker here easily, then what is stopping him from being a top 50 pick? And at this point, I don't really think there's an answer to that question. I think he just is a top 50 pick in the NFL. Like, I don't see how you can talk yourself out of what you're getting with Rodriguez in every phase of the game.
Unbelievable mustache on Jacob Rodriguez too.
It's incredible.
God, the play that he made in the practice where he is, I mean, it was a bad throw, I'll say that, but he's in good coverage position, gets the pick, and then like pops the helmet off and then like headbutts a teammate. It's like, God, I want this guy as a linebacker on my goddamn team. And he's punching out the ball in the Senior Bowl, like you see him doing like across the entirety of his college football career. He's known for that, like, quote unquote peanut punch. That if he's not going to be able to get the tackle, he's at least punching at that ball. And a lot of times it's real accurate, and a lot of the times that thing's squirting out. And so you saw him do that in this in the Senior Bowl game. And so it's just like one of those players that is gonna get splash plays and gonna be an exciting player to have in Dynasty and on your NFL team, and also just like rock solid as a defender. Like, flies around, makes good solid tackles, and then has a little more juice to him as well. So ton of fun.
He's a good coverage player.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about linebacker, and we talk about this whole Fred Warner element and like what is a good coverage line. Like he's a good coverage linebacker. He's more than serviceable, and he's putting that on display this week.
Did he have 2 forced fumbles?
He had one in the scrimmage for sure.
I'm seeing a second also. A second fumble has hit the timeline.
Wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I was like, he forced the first one. I just texted you and Caleb, and I was like, Jacob Rodriguez forced fumble drink.
Yep.
Like it's just that's what he is. He's that consistent, that dominant at forcing turnovers. And it's not like a gimmick. It's not just, oh, he's the forced fumble linebacker. Like he is a complete linebacker that has an ability to force turnovers at a very high clip. I mean, he looked great in the coverage one-on-ones. I mean, we're talking about Kyle Lewis like absolutely taking over and dominating. Rodriguez looked good in those. Like he looked good.
And he had a couple great man coverage reps where he's just stuck to the guy.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. He's not the most athletic, like pure athletic linebacker in this group. There's guys that are getting drafted, mock drafted, whatever, ahead of him consistently. Sonny Styles can go top 15, whatever. Rodriguez is just so good in all elements of the game that it's really hard for me to imagine an NFL team not wanting this guy to play linebacker for them. I just feel like he's going to be drafted a lot higher than it seemed like, certainly in the middle of the season. But like there was a little bit of hype at the end of the year with just because he swept the awards and he's like the fucking 5th in the Heisman. No, he's going high, and he will go high in a dynasty rookie draft because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be taking him high if I get the chance.
God, I want him so bad. I'll do heinous things this year. I don't need any of these offensive guys. I will do heinous things.
Maybe I'm just going to go IDP only. You know, you go after get the top 5 guys out of the way, and then we're going all defensive players.
So if you're not playing IDP, this is what you're missing.
Yeah.
But all right, that's 12 to 1. Is there anybody else from last week that stood out to you that you want to shout out here?
No, we covered all my guys. I got my Josh Cameron mention in. I wanted to get Jacoby Lane in, but you vetoed me on that. You're like, no, one clip doesn't suffice getting a guy into the show, and totally understandable. But no, those are my fringe names that one made it, one didn't.
Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I really, really, really do not like Jacoby Lane. Like
that's okay.
There's a lot of I've seen more than a handful of like, you've heard of Makai Lemon, but did you know about the other USC wide receiver, the 6'4" one? And I'm just like, yeah, I'm good. Like there's a reason that we're talking about Makai Lemon and not this guy. But I digress. On the defensive side, I'll shout out a few names here just so we can appreciate the impact that they had last week. Bryce Betcher, the linebacker from Oregon, I thought was really impressive. Just kind of another name in this linebacker group that's just getting deeper and deeper by the day, it feels like. And I need to get more familiarized with Betcher to even think about where I would talk about him. He's probably going to be one of these later guys, especially in this kind of a class, but he looked really good from what I saw in the practices. Derek Moore, the edge from Michigan, also had an awesome week. So again, we're talking about more edge guys that are standing out. It's just kind of the story of this class. If you're playing IDP, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to get talented players, probably outside of a 4-round draft. So those are 2 guys on that side. And then on the offensive side, I do want to shout out Reggie Virgil, because I expected Caleb Douglas to maybe be the Texas Tech wide receiver that looked kind of good because he had some moments last year. Reggie Virgil looked really impressive. His releases were some of the strongest that I saw out of the one-on-ones, kind of consistently winning off the line of scrimmage. It wasn't the TikTok stuff. There wasn't a ton of the TikTok releases this year.
Because those guys aren't good enough. They just got to focus on being good receivers. They don't get to add the TikTok release package into their game.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought Virgil was really strong in that department. So I do want to go back and check him out. He had 700 yards, over 700 yards for them this season. But yeah, so I mean, it was truthfully a weaker group at the Senior Bowl. I think some of these skill guys that we're talking about, even in the top 12, these are going to be guys that are going a little bit later. They're not going to be your top 2 dynasty round sorts of talents. But I think overall, it's just nice to see some of these mostly wide receivers kind of just establishing themselves. I know we've talked about this class being a deep wide receiver group. These aren't necessarily guys that are factoring in on the top end of things, but these are names to know. These are good players. Some of them will be in the day 2-ish range. Others like Montgomery are wild cards that are a lot of fun. So overall, it's always fun to get to this week and to see how these guys are doing on the field. And hey, a few weeks from now, we'll get to see them do it all over again at the combine.
Jacoby Land was wearing 89. Shout out to him for that. That's awesome.
I was like, damn,
had a
this is the
sluggo.
Collin wide receiver.
Had a sluggo where I think he might have killed a guy, and so I tried to get him in on grounds of that.
Okay.
Then I saw every other rep because you were like, yeah, I can't do that, and I was like, why not? And I was watching, and I was like, I kind of get it. I think he was the only receiver that lost. Yeah, I think he was the only receiver that lost the one-on-one rep.
All right. Well, next week we're at the point of the schedule and the draft season and all that where it's like, what are we doing next week? And every week it's like, oh shit, it's time for perfect matches.
God, I can't wait.
We're already here.
I love it.
So we're doing that. We're going to match make we're going back to the top of the class. We're going to talk about the top names again, play a little matchmaker, see where they fit in terms of the NFL. This is where we start bringing in the actual, hey, you're going to be playing in the NFL. Let's start talking about that a little bit. So that's always exciting to be able to do that.
I've been feeling like this class doesn't actually exist and it's like kind of a figment of my imagination. And I feel like that'll make it seem a little more real.
Yeah.
Where we're like, yeah, I think, Jeremiah Love is going to play for the Bears. And it's like, yes. Whoa, that's kind of scary. And yeah, so that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, always is. Looking forward to it. If you enjoyed our discussion about the biggest winners of the 2026 Senior Bowl, be sure to find us on Twitter at camp_dynasty and TikTok at camp.dynasty. But most importantly, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done those things already before you leave, because we appreciate that. And if you're listening on the pod feed, of course, make sure that you are following and liking and rating, and you can leave the review if you want to. I know the review is hard. We're all busy people. Do I have time to write a 50-word review for everything that I listen to? No, I don't.
Am I listening to it in the car and taking time to throw a comment down? I wouldn't do that. Don't do that if you are listening in the car.
Yeah, but if you have the time, you're bored, you're just kind of feeling it. Maybe you want to go like 3 stars. You want to be like, yeah, they're all right, but it could be better. I don't care. Go for it. That's fine. Free speech.
Stock exchange, man.
Yes. And that's it, I think.
I think that's it.
So now how do we sign this thing off again? Rachel McAdams is in a movie.
Rachel McAdams is in Send Help, and hopefully we're going to see Wuthering Heights in IMAX when we're in Indianapolis after one of the Combine days, because that's going to be awesome. We're going to come undone in 70 millimeter.
Yes. Thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.